Children are always going to die, not because we want them to die, but because somebody else neglect them.
We're not working with commodities, we're working with human beings. You cannot balance budgets on the backs of children.
Is it at the end of the day that everybody's happy and nobody really cares about what services are provided to the people who are less fortunate? That's what it seems like.
As we say, the children are our future, so our future look bleak.
You have a child who's been in our system since the time they were little. You know, they've been sexually abused here and there. By the time they're 15, they might be pregnant and having a child on their own. And if they're not in a safe place and that child comes into our care, and then we raise the child until they're over 18, we return the child to the parent, and it goes on and on and on, and it never stops, right? It never stops, and so you see those kids as children, and then you see them as parents, right? And if you've been around long enough, you see them as grandparents.
Everybody within the child welfare system is a victim. There's no exceptions. You're either abandoned, abused, or because of no fault of your own, you need special help to make it.
We see a variety of children, from lower to middle to upper class children who have committed all kind of heinous crimes: murder, sexual assault, break and enter, robbery, you name it. All the crimes that adults commit, we see young people committing those crimes.
You know, I've testified at fatality inquiries. I've looked at disclosure reports involving kids in care that have been brutally murdered or have committed horrific acts of violence themselves. And you see these big crevices within the system.
And if you make one change in one person's life, it's a huge impact, but it's not good enough. Every day we get up, we will hear about these disastrous things that happen to children.
As a youth, I faced addiction, I faced homelessness, and I came to a point in my life as I was nearing like the end of my teens that I decided that I didn't want to do that anymore. There wasn't ever any intervention, so I didn't have any social workers, I didn't have any youth workers, I didn't have child and family services or anything help me. I was completely cut off from the system. I was, I guess, one of the youth that had fallen through the cracks. So that was actually one of my motivations to be a social worker, was because I know that there are youth out there like that, and I want to be one of those professionals that can help youth that have fallen through the cracks.
I've always had a desire to work with people in terms of being able to be in a position to help them overcome social barriers, and so it's been an attractive area for me. This is a very difficult job. We deal with a lot of things that people do not want to deal with and that do not think that could happen. We deal with the abuse of children, and sometimes that can be really hard. So the majority of our workers, over 50% of our workforce, has less than 2.5 years of experience because they move on. It's not a field that you get a lot of satisfaction from, because we barely get to see when families are successful, and yet we get to see a lot of tears, a lot of blood, a lot of bruises, and a lot of things that people don't want to see.
People go home every night and they agonize, did I do the right thing for a child? Is the child going to be alive tomorrow morning? But you can do only the best you can. In my 24 years, you know, that I have worked for Alberta Children's Services, I've seen the services eroded over the years.
The system is getting worse. What we're seeing is, you know, more in terms of us being unable to do our jobs in an effective kind of a way because of the shortage of manpower, shortage of resources. Before, we could work with families in terms of providing them with things that would alleviate some of their concerns and problems. We had funds that would go directly to the well-being of the children. All that is gone.
I know you're 14, I know you have no safe place to live. but we have no bed for you. And we'll give you a granola bar and a juice box. That's all we can offer you. In the richest province in one of the richest countries in the world, that's what it comes down to at 2 in the morning on some nights, is a juice box and a granola bar, because there are no beds for that 14-year-old girl.
The foster care system is in serious crisis in this province. We also have less foster homes. That's a huge issue for us. Sometimes you take a child 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and you find the best home ever. Sometimes you wish you could take them home yourself. And it's a hit and miss.
At midnight, I can get a call from a frontline social worker in tears because they just can't cope. Their caseloads are just huge. They're working endless hours.
A lot of the times we can't even get to some of the cases that are referred to us. They sit there waiting. So we're actually, in a sense, breaking the law. In terms of doing social work and being out there in the family, well, they changed our title from social workers to case managers. There was a reason for that, right? We don't do social work anymore. We basically manage cases.
We're going from fire to fire because we don't have the ability to connect with our families anymore. We don't have the luxury of going out and meeting our families as much as we used to before. And that's just basically because we don't have enough staff.
The paperwork is overwhelming, and the accountability now, and not saying that you shouldn't have accountability, but the process of that accountability is enormous.
Anytime that government divests its responsibility and gives it to the private sector, and we just act as a regulatory body, it's privatization. Privatization, I guess, can be described better as whenever the government contracts out services to a private agency, and then the private agency becomes a buffer to the responsibility that the government has. And we believe strongly that the protection of children should always remain as a responsibility of a government and not the private sector.
The system's here to help children. That we have a very clear mandate, but somewhere from that message to the way systems are delivered within this province, we've lost that message.
They don't really want to pay any attention to any of that, and I don't understand why.
It's frustrating in the sense that I see so many kids that don't have to be in youth court. If there was a bit more support, a bit more intervention, a bit more, and we've lost this word, a bit more love.
When you look at some of the history of some of the families that we have intervened in, and after the situation become disastrous, when you read some of the inquiries, you find out that this individual parent had mental health problems from an early age. So if we were able to do a better job, of really supporting that family, I think maybe we would have saved some of these children.
I mean, the system is broken, okay? Accept that and don't say, well, we're trying to fix it. We're trying to fix it.
The government and our bosses really need to give us the tools so that when we leave at the end of the day, we can be sure that no child will die.
Let's stop treating our at-risk children like commodities and get back to treating them like human beings. Tell the government to stop using privatization as a way of avoiding responsibility, and remind them that we need more frontline workers to give our most vulnerable children the help and hope they desperately need. Sign the petition.